A kind waitress paid for an old man's coffee. She didn't know he was a billionaire, quietly searching for someone real, someone who could see past money and show true kindness. It was a rainy morning downtown. The cafe was full of life, customers chatting, mugs clinking, steam rising from fresh coffee. Outside, rain blurred the windows and made the city look like a painting. Inside, the smell of coffee mixed with the wet pavement outside, wrapping everyone in a cozy mood. The door opened with a gust of cold air. A man in his early 50s stepped in, soaked from head to toe. His coat was thin, his shoes old and muddy, and his hair clung wet to his forehead. He looked tired, like life had been hard on him. He walked slowly to the counter and asked for a simple black coffee. As the barista rung up the order, the man reached into his pockets, searching for his wallet. But it wasn't there. His face went pale. I'm sorry, he whispered. I must have left my wallet at home. I wasn't trying to get a free drink. I just need a place to sit until the rain stops. The barista, a young guy with a sharp look and sharper attitude, folded his arms and raised his voice so everyone could hear. This isn't a shelter, buddy. No money, no service. If you can't pay, you can't stay. People started staring. The man lowered his head, embarrassed. I didn't mean to cause trouble, he said softly. From a corner table, a group of rich-looking customers started laughing. Imagine coming in with no money and expecting coffee, one mocked. Guess even beggars want cappuccinos now, another chuckled. The man turned to leave, his shoulders heavy with shame. Then, from across the room, a voice cut through the noise. That's enough. Emma, a 29-year-old waitress with auburn hair and a ponytail, stepped forward. She'd been watching everything, her eyes filled with quiet fire. She set down her tray, pulled $5 from her pocket, and placed it on the counter. I'm paying for his coffee, she said firmly. The barista blinked. Emma, come on, you don't have to pay for him. I want to, she said, not out of pity, because I know what it's like to be treated like you're less than others. The group at the table snickered. Imagine a waitress playing hero, one jeered. Maybe she's hoping he'll leave a tip? Emma turned to face the room. Her voice was calm but strong. Kindness isn't a joke. It's not weakness, and it's not a transaction. But mocking someone when they're down, that shows real smallness. Silence spread through the cafe like a wave. Emma turned back to the man and smiled. Please sit. I'll bring your coffee. The man nodded, his eyes glassy with emotion. He sat near the window, quietly sipping the coffee Emma brought him. The cafe felt different now, quieter, more thoughtful. Later, when Emma finished her shift, no one spoke to her, but she felt the stares, the whispers, the judgment hanging in the air like smoke. The next day, her manager Brian called her into the office. The small room smelled of bleach and burnt coffee. Close the door, he said, arms crossed. Emma, this is a business, not a charity. You embarrassed your coworker and made customers uncomfortable. I paid for it myself, Emma replied calmly. That's not the point, he snapped. "You don't get to decide who deserves freebies. You want to play Mother Teresa? Do it on your own time." Emma met his eyes. He embarrassed himself. "I just stood up." "Watch it," Brian said coldly. "You're here to serve, not lecture." "Can I go?" "Get out and remember your place." In the kitchen, her co-workers Marcy and Josh were washing dishes. They fell silent when she walked in. "Must be nice to play noble when you still live with your little sister," Marcy muttered. Josh laughed. "Bet she thought the guy was a secret millionaire." Emma said nothing. She grabbed her coat and stepped into the rain. Her small apartment, which she shared with her teenage sister Lily, was cold and drafty. She found her Lily curled on the couch, coughing under a thin blanket. "Hey," she whispered, brushing her forehead. "You're late," she murmured. Got caught in the rain, smiled. She warmed some old porridge and added a pinch of salt before handing it to her. She checked her wallet. $3, a subway token, and a worn photo of their mom. That was it. Still, she felt no regret. Not for the coffee, not for speaking up. That night, she sat by the window, watching the rain fall. Her reflection stared back. Tired, pale, but with something stronger deep inside. She remembered a day long ago. She was 15. Her mom had collapsed at a market, and no one stopped. Except one woman. Poor, quiet, kind. She gave them water, wrapped Emma in a shawl. Emma never forgot. That moment became a promise. And when she saw that man in the cafe, cold, embarrassed, invisible, Emma didn't think. She simply acted. Because being kind wasn't about the moment. It was about who she was. Before bed, she whispered to the dark, "I'd rather be mocked for doing the right thing than praised for staying silent." 4 days passed. People still whispered, they stared, but now they saw her, and sometimes that felt heavier than being ignored. Then one morning, the cafe buzzed like usual. Emma moved from table to table, wiping crumbs and smiling politely. The doorbell rang. She didn't look up right away. But something felt different. A tall man stepped inside. He wore a tailored suit, a silk scarf, and shined shoes. He looked like he belonged in a skyscraper, not a corner cafe. But his eyes, I recognized them. He walked past the counter and sat at the same window seat where the soaked man had once sat. Emma's heart skipped. She walked over, unsure if she should say anything. Before she could speak, he looked up. "I'm not here to order," he said softly. "I just have one question. Why did you help me?" Emma blinked. "I couldn't just stand there and do nothing. You didn't know me. You had nothing to gain. You didn't look like a beggar. You look like someone being made to feel small. And I know what that feels like." She sat across from him. "When I was 17, my mom collapsed in a market. Everyone passed her by, except one old woman. She had nothing, but she helped us. I promised myself if I ever had the chance, I'd do the same." He smiled. "Do you read?" "Books?" Emma asked. "I used to." They talked about stories, music, why people grow cold when they feel powerless. He mentioned authors she'd never read, but she didn't fake it. She listened, asked questions, laughed. "You're not what I expected," Emma said. "What did you expect?" "Someone who just wanted to say thank you and disappear." He looked her in the eye. "I've had money for years, but few people have made me feel human again. That day, you did." 1 week later, an envelope arrived. No sender, just gold letters. Ainsley Hotel, a 5-star place where presidents stayed, not waitresses. Inside, Emma L. Bennett, guest of Charles H. Everlyn. Her hands shook. 3 days later, dressed in her best blouse and borrowed shoes, Emma stepped into a marble lobby filled with elegance. She was led to a lounge high above the city. Charles walked in, this time looking fully like the billionaire he was. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I wanted to tell you in person." He explained it all. "I'm Charles H. Everlyn. I own companies in 12 countries, but that day I dressed down on purpose. I needed to see how people treat someone when there's nothing to gain. My wife passed away 15 years ago. I lost faith in people, so I began traveling, watching." He looked at her gently. "You didn't know who I was, but you chose kindness. That meant everything." Emma stood. "So what now? You passed your little test? Do I get a prize?" Charles shook his head. "I don't want to buy your thanks. I just want to know you. Talk. Learn from you." He paused. "I wasn't testing you. I was hoping to find someone real." And that day, in a quiet room high above the city, they were no longer strangers. Not billionaire and waitress, just two people who saw each other for who they really were, and neither of them would forget it. "Would you have a coffee with me again?" he asked. "No expectations, no show." Emma looked at him, not at his fancy suit or the stylish hotel lounge or the glowing skyline outside, but at his eyes. Those same eyes that once looked down in shame, soaked in rain, asking for a place to stay warm. He was still that man. That mattered more than anything. She took a deep breath. "I don't know what this is," she said softly, "or what you think it could become, but I do know who I am." Charles turned to her, something soft in his expression. "And who's that?" She gave him a small, honest smile. "Someone who didn't help to be noticed, and someone not afraid to walk away if that's all this is." He nodded slowly, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "That's what makes you different." And for the first time, Emma realized this wasn't a test. It was an invitation, not into wealth, but into something far more rare. To be seen and to be remembered, not for who you impress, but for who you are when no one's watching. She didn't expect to hear from Charles again. Maybe that hotel meeting was the end of something surreal. But the next afternoon, another envelope came. No gold print, just her name, carefully handwritten. Inside, a short note. "Emma, I'm heading to Montreal next week. I go every year. It's quiet there, peaceful. I'd love for you to come. No business, no pressure, just company. Just conversation, No expectations, only a real invitation. Charles. Tucked inside, a round-trip train ticket. That night in their tiny kitchen, Emma stirred boiling rice while her sister Lily coughed gently from the couch. "You're quiet," Lily said. I smiled. "That's rare, huh?" "You're thinking about him." Emma nodded. She told Lily everything. The note, the ticket, the strange feeling like a door had opened that she hadn't even knocked on. "I'm not sure I belong in his world. What if I mess it up? What if it changes the way I see myself?" Lily looked at her and said something Emma would never forget. "You've spent your whole life making space for others. Maybe it's time you see what it's like when someone makes space for you." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The rain tapped gently on the window. City buses hummed below. The old wall clock ticked softly. She thought of the cafe, of Charles, of her mother's words. "Don't wait for life to find you. Sometimes you have to go find it yourself." By sunrise, she'd made her choice. She packed a small bag, her journal, 2 changes of clothes, and a book she'd been meaning to finish. She left Lily a note on the fridge along with grocery money and a long hug. At the station, she waited, heart pounding. When the train pulled in with a soft hiss, she stepped on, not into a dream, but into something real. Charles was waiting. No guards, no show, just him, by the window, holding 2 coffees. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I didn't think I would either," she smiled. But then I remembered. The world doesn't change unless you walk into it. He nodded. "I'm not offering anything. No promises, no golden roads. I just thought maybe it's time I stop walking alone." As the train rolled out of the city and into trees and fields, Emma realized something. Maybe they both needed someone to remind them they still had a choice. And so began a journey, not of luxury, but of truth. No fancy hotels, no yachts, no champagne. Instead, quiet villages, shared meals, old jeeps with open windows. They visited orphanages where kids ran into Charles's arms, not because of money, but because he remembered birthdays. He remembered them. At shelters, he didn't talk much. He just listened. They sat on porches, sharing soup with strangers who never knew he was a billionaire. He never said a word about it. "Why don't you tell people who you are?" Emma once asked. He shrugged. "Because then they stop treating me like I'm human." And everywhere they went, his eyes weren't looking for thanks. They were looking for connection. Emma caught her reflection once, smiling in a way she hadn't in years. One night, in a quiet cabin near a pine forest, they sat on the porch with chamomile tea, in silence that felt like breathing. "I've had people offer me everything," Charles said. "Comfort, even love. But I don't need someone to love me. I need someone who understands why I love what I do." Emma replied, slowly, honestly. I don't know if I'm that person, but I do know I've never felt more like myself than I do with you. And that was enough. No big moment, just truth shared in stillness. 3 months passed, quiet mornings, long talks, helping others. Emma didn't change in the way the world might expect. Her shoes were still worn, her journals still messy, but her spirit, that had changed. She stood taller, spoke with calm. She no longer felt the need to prove anything. One day, after visiting a shelter in Detroit, Charles took her to a rooftop. He handed her a simple folder. No bows, no drama. Inside, legal papers. A foundation in her name. The Emma Bennett Opportunity Fund. "I don't want this in my name," he said. "I've done enough of that. I want the next girl, the waitress, the sister, the invisible one, to know someone saw her." Emma touched the folder. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," Charles smiled. But Emma did speak. "I'm honored," she said, "but I want to try something else. I want to build something of my own, not with money, but with presence, with showing up, with listening, like someone once did for me." Charles nodded, proud. "You already have." There was no label for what they were. Not lovers, not business partners. Something deeper. A recognition of souls. He squeezed her hand gently. "No matter what you do, I'll always be in your corner." And she believed him. Later, soft rain fell as the final letters were pressed on the cafe window. The first cup. Emma stood across the street, umbrella in hand, watching her dream come to life. It wasn't just a cafe. It was the cafe, where everything had started. She had rebuilt it, walls painted, floors sanded, lights glowing, all thanks to volunteers, small donors, and quiet support from someone who never asked for credit. Etched under the glass logo, no one should have to earn kindness. Inside, the space was warm and full of life. Soft music, books, conversations. A chalkboard near the counter read, "Your first cup is on us. Your second, if you can, on someone else." An old man entered, soaked from the rain, unsure. A young barista stepped up. "Sir, this cafe is for paying Emma crossed the room and gently stopped him. "It's okay," she smiled. "Sir, would you like a seat by the window?" The man nodded slowly. "Just something warm, just to sit for a bit. It's been a hard morning." Emma's voice was kind. "Then let's make it easier, with peace and a hot drink." She looked at the barista. "Here, the first cup is always free. No questions, no shame." As she turned to walk away, something made her pause. Across the street, Charles, umbrella in hand, watching quietly. He didn't wave, didn't come inside, just gave her a look of gratitude,
farewell, and something else, a promise. He nodded once, then turned and disappeared into the rain. That night, during the cafe's soft opening, Emma stood near the piano, a warm cup in her hand, and her heart full. And just like that, her story had come full circle.
Every seat was taken. The room felt warm, full of something more than just coffee, something real. Emma stepped up and smiled gently. "Years ago," she began, "I paid for someone's coffee. I didn't know his name. I just saw a man who looked tired, embarrassed, and I couldn't ignore it." She paused, holding up her own cup. "That coffee cost me $5, but what it gave me was a whole new way of looking at life." Some people nodded. Others quietly wiped tears. "I thought I was helping a stranger, but really, he helped me find a version of myself I didn't even know was possible." She placed the cup down on the piano beside her. This cafe isn't about fancy drinks or profits. It's about being here, being present, being kind when no one else is. Her voice softened. "A man once told me, kindness doesn't need to be remembered. It just needs to be passed on." She looked around the room. "That's what we're doing here, one cup at a time." Then she added, like it had just come to her, "Not every love story needs romance. And sometimes a simple act of kindness is the moment that changes your whole life." The crowd clapped. A saxophone player began to play softly, and in the back, a fresh cup of coffee was served to someone who didn't know how much they needed it until they tasted it. And just like that, it all started again. Thank you for walking through this story with us. A story that began with one small choice on a rainy day and grew into something bigger than either of them ever imagined. Emma didn't chase a fairy tale. She didn't look for money or fame. She just chose to care when no one else did. And sometimes that's enough to change two lives. If this story touched your heart, made you feel something, or reminded you how powerful one kind moment can be, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. We share real, emotional stories that lift you up, heal your spirit, and remind you what it means to be truly human. We'll see you in the next one, where another soul is waiting to be seen.